The cougar thought the backyard was empty. Then 3 giant guardian dogs emerged. The dead chicken was still warm, not torn apart, not eaten, just opened, throat punctured clean, body tossed aside like someone had taken a bite of something they didn't want to finish. The blood had already seeped into the frozen dirt, turning it the color of old brick. Marcus Hale crouched next to it, flashlight in his teeth, his breath making ghosts in the November air. The smell hit first. Wet feathers, copper, that sour tang of guts exposed to cold. He'd lost 2 hens last week, found one in the morning with its neck at an angle that didn't make sense, the other just gone. No feathers, no drag marks, nothing. He clicked off the flashlight and listened. The property sat on 47 acres of hardwood and scrub at the base of Clinch Mountain, about 9 miles east of Tazewell, Virginia. The kind of land that looked peaceful in daylight and turned into something else after dark. The tree line started maybe 200 yards from the back porch, a wall of oak and hemlock that swallowed the moonlight whole. Used to be, you'd hear whippoorwills out there, coyotes sometimes, deer crashing through the underbrush at dawn. Not anymore. The deer were gone. Marcus hadn't seen a track in 3 weeks. The wild turkeys that roosted along the creek bed vanished. Even the rabbits had cleared out. When the prey disappears, something's eating it. And when that something runs out of easy meals, it starts looking at fences, at livestock, at anything that smells like opportunity. Marcus stood up and wiped his hand on his jeans. The blood left a dark smear across his thigh. Behind him, in the gravel between the barn and the house, 3 dogs stood in a loose triangle, not sitting, not relaxed, standing. Nero, the CANE Corso, was closest. 130 pounds of slate-gray muscle with a chest like a barrel and a scar that ran from his left ear to his jaw. He got that scar 2 years ago from a boar that wandered onto the property. The boar didn't wander off. Nero didn't bark. He rarely did. He just stood there, nostrils flaring, his eyes locked on the tree line like he was reading something written in the dark. Behind him, offset to the right, was Shepherd. Yeah, that was his name. A German shepherd named Shepherd, because Marcus's daughter was 6 when they got him, and she thought it was hilarious. 85 pounds, lean, ears like satellite dishes. Shepherd was the one who noticed things first, the one who'd stop mid-stride, cock his head, and freeze. And you learned fast that when Shepherd froze, you paid attention. And then there was Boaz, the KANGAL. 140 pounds of Turkish livestock guardian with a head the size of a cinder block and a temperament that ran somewhere between a bouncer and a monk. Boaz didn't move fast. Didn't need to. He'd been bred for one thing, standing between something he protected and something that wanted to kill it. He was good at his job. 3 dogs, 3 different instincts. And right now, all 3 were telling Marcus the same thing. Something's here. He pulled up the trail cam footage on his phone. The camera was mounted on a pine post near the back fence, pointing toward the gap where the old logging road met the property line. Infrared. Motion activated. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. 2 nights ago. The image was grainy, green and gray, the way all-night vision looks. Like the world seen through dirty water. But the shape was clear. Long body, low to the ground. A tail that hung heavy and curled at the tip, moving through the frame with the kind of smooth, deliberate gait that said this animal wasn't lost. It was shopping. Marcus zoomed in. The paws were wide. Too wide for a coyote, too wide for a bobcat. The stride length put the animal at close to 6 feet, nose to tail. Mountain lion. He looked at the tree line again. Nero hadn't moved, hadn't blinked. The prints Marcus found the next morning confirmed it. 4 toes, no claw marks. Pressed deep into the mud by the creek bed, heading east toward the ridge. Each one the size of his fist. Coyotes you can scare off. A bobcat the dogs would handle without breaking a sweat. But this was different. This was a predator that could drop a full-grown elk, and it knew where his chickens slept. She'd been moving south for 11 days. The cougar, a female, maybe 5 years old, about 120 pounds, had left the higher elevations of the Jefferson National Forest when the first hard freeze killed the ground cover. Up there, the deer had thinned out. The elk reintroduction program had shifted the herds further north. The squirrels were buried. The creeks were starting to ice. She was hungry, not desperate. Not yet, but hungry enough to start taking risks she normally wouldn't. Mountain lions are not what people think they are. They're not aggressive. They're not reckless. They're accountants. They calculate calories in versus calories spent. Every hunt is a math problem. Can I catch it? Can I kill it? Will it hurt me? Is there something easier? She'd been answering those questions her whole life. 2 weeks before she crossed onto Marcus's land, she'd taken a fawn near the Appalachian Trail, about 14 miles northwest. Clean ambush. One bite to the back of the neck. She fed for 2 days, buried the rest under leaves, came back the next night to find a black bear had dug it up and taken what was left. That's the tax you pay in these mountains. Nothing stays yours. After that, she'd followed the creek south. Water means prey. Prey means tracks, scat, bedding areas. She moved at night, slept during the day in rock overhangs or deadfall, places where the wind couldn't carry her scent downhill. She wasn't wandering. She was surveying. When she hit the edge of Marcus's property, she smelled it before she saw it. Chicken. That warm, dense, grain-fed smell that carries on cold air like a signal flare. Then cattle. Further off, across a fence line she'd already memorized. And dogs. 3 of them. She didn't rush. She circled the property twice over 4 nights. Never crossed the fence. Never triggered the trail cam. Not the first 3 times, anyway. She watched. She learned the rhythms. The porch light went off at 10:15. The big gray one patrolled the east side. The one with the tall ears stayed near the house. The heavy one, the one that smelled like dry earth and old meat, he slept by the barn. She noted the gaps, the section of fence where the bottom rail sagged, the blind spot between the barn and the woodshed where the porch light didn't reach, the 30-second window between when the gray dog finished his loop and the eared one started his. She was patient. She'd been doing this longer than they had. But here's what she didn't calculate. Couldn't calculate. These weren't pets. They weren't lapdogs playing at being tough. Nero had fought a 200-pound boar and won. Shepard had cornered a rattlesnake the size of a garden hose and held his ground until Marcus put a shovel through it. Boaz came from a line of dogs bred to fight wolves on the Anatolian plateau. Actual wolves, not the idea of wolves. And something else she missed. Something that doesn't show up on a survey run or a scent check. These 3 had never worked together before. Not like this. They'd always had their own zones, their own routines. Nero took the east. Shepard stayed close to the house. Boaz owned the barn. They respected each other's territory the way professionals do, with distance and mutual understanding. But over the past week, something shifted. Marcus noticed it first on a Tuesday night. He stepped onto the porch for a smoke, and all 3 dogs were standing together near the back fence, shoulder to shoulder, facing the tree line. Not barking, not growling, just present. He'd never seen that before. No, that's not right. He'd seen it once, when Nero was a puppy and a black bear came down during a drought. The other 2 dogs had flanked Nero, put him in the center, formed a line. Marcus had fired a warning shot and the bear left. But the dogs held that line for another 20 minutes, like they were making sure. Now they were doing it again, every night, unprompted, synchronized. They knew, and they were ready. She watched them from the ridge, yellow eyes steady, tail twitching once. She decided it was time. No moon, the kind of dark that makes you doubt your own hands. Cloud cover sat heavy over Clinch Mountain like a wet wool blanket, swallowing stars, killing shadows. The temperature had dropped to 26 degrees. The ground was hard. The air tasted like iron and pine sap. 2:14 a.m. Marcus was asleep upstairs. The porch light had clicked off on its timer 40 minutes ago. The property sat in that dead silent pocket between midnight and dawn where even the insects shut up. The only sound was the creek, thin and metallic, trickling over rocks that had frost on them. She came from the northwest, the sagging fence rail. She'd tested it twice before, pressing her weight against the bottom, feeling the give. This time she didn't test. She flowed over it, 120 pounds of muscle moving like poured water. No sound, no snag. Her paws hit the frozen grass on the other side and she paused, nostrils wide, ears rotating. The chicken coop was 60 yards ahead. She could smell them, that thick, drowsy, feathered warmth leaking through the plywood walls. Easy calories, quick kill, in and out before anything reacted. She covered 30 yards in absolute silence, belly low, shoulder blades rolling under her coat like pistons. 40 yards, 50. Shepard heard it first, or felt it, or sensed the barometric shift of something large displacing air in a space where nothing should be moving. He'd been lying on the porch, chin on his paws, one ear cocked toward the back of the property. The ear rotated, then the other. His head came up, Nostrils flared. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He let out one sound. A single, sharp, guttural chuff, like a cough with teeth behind it. If you've never heard a German Shepherd's alert call, it doesn't sound like what you'd expect. It's not loud. It's clipped, precise. A radio transmission, not a siren. Nero was already moving. He came around the east side of the house like something had launched him. Silent, low, that massive CANE Corso frame covering ground with a speed that didn't match his size. His eyes had already adjusted. He didn't need to see her. He could smell her. That dry, musky, cat piss and blood scent that every dog knows in its DNA. The scent that says predator. From the barn, Boaz rose. Slow, deliberate. His legs unfolded like he was standing up out of concrete. He didn't run. He walked. Heavy, measured steps that you could feel through the ground if you were close enough. He moved to the left of the coop, blocked the gap between the barn and the fence line, planted himself. 3 points, 3 angles. A triangle closing in real time. The cougar stopped. She was 10 yards from the coop when she realized she wasn't alone. The gray one was to her right, coming fast. The heavy one was to her left, already still. And behind her, the eared one had dropped off the porch and was cutting off the path to the fence. She'd miscalculated. For a long second, nothing moved. 5 animals locked in geometry. The math of survival running through every nervous system simultaneously. Distance, angle, weight, speed. Who moves first, dies or wins. She chose aggression. The cougar exploded forward, not toward the coop, toward Nero. A direct charge. If she could break the biggest threat first, the formation would collapse. That was the logic. It was the same logic wolves use. The same logic every pack predator follows. Remove the anchor, scatter the rest. But Nero wasn't a herd animal. He didn't scatter. He dropped his center of gravity and met her head on. The collision was ugly. No grace, no choreography. Just mass hitting mass. A sound like a wet bag of sand thrown against a wall. Her claws found his shoulder immediately. 4 parallel lines opened across the muscle above his right leg, deep. The kind of cut that doesn't bleed right away because the flesh is still in shock. Nero didn't yelp, didn't flinch. He clamped his jaws on the loose skin at the base of her neck and held. She twisted. Cats twist like they've got no spine. 360 degrees of flexible fury. Her back claws raked his ribs, but he held. Shepherd hit from the side, low, fast, targeting her hindquarters. He got a mouthful of fur and muscle and pulled, dragging her balance off-center. She whipped around, one paw catching him across the muzzle. The sound was like a whip crack. Blood sprayed across the frozen grass, bright against the white frost. And then Boaz was there. He didn't lunge. He pressed, 140 pounds of KANGAL walking into the fight like a wall coming to life. He caught her flank and bit down with the kind of jaw pressure that's measured in hundreds of PSI. She screamed, a sound like tearing metal, and broke free from Nero's grip. She was surrounded, bleeding, panting. Her left rear leg wasn't moving right. Blood on the grass. 3 separate colors under the starless sky. Nero's dark and slow, spreading from the shoulder wound like spilled oil. Shepherd's bright and fast, dripping from the gash across his muzzle in a steady rhythm. And hers, thin, almost invisible in the dark, seeping from the bite on her flank where Boaz had caught her. The fight had lasted maybe 12 seconds. Felt like an hour. The cougar backed up 3 steps, not retreating, recalculating. Her eyes moved between the 3 dogs the way a chess player scans the board after a bad opening. She was hurt, but she wasn't beaten. A mountain lion can kill a 200-pound mule deer with 1 bite. She could end any one of these dogs in seconds. Any one of them. That was the problem. Not one. Nero circled right. Slow. His shoulder was leaking badly. The 4 parallel gashes had opened up now, the flesh swelling pink and wet along the edges. Each step sent a visible tremor through his front leg, but he didn't favor it, didn't limp. He kept his weight even, his head low, those black eyes locked on her with a focus that had nothing to do with rage and everything to do with purpose. I wish I could tell you he was fearless. He wasn't. You could see it in the way his nostrils flared too fast, the way his ears pinned back for half a second before snapping forward again. He was afraid. He just decided it didn't matter. Shepherd repositioned to her rear. The cut across his muzzle was ugly. a 3-inch slash that had split the skin from his nose almost to his right eye. Blood matted the fur under his jaw and dripped onto his chest. He shook his head once, sending a fine spray into the air, and refocused. His stance was different now. Lower, tighter. The playful alertness was gone. What replaced it was something older, something bred into the line for 100 generations. Prey drive locked onto a target that wasn't prey. Boaz hadn't moved. That was his weapon. The cougar had scratched his rear left leg during the scramble, a shallow rake across the thigh muscle that was bleeding but not deep. He stood exactly where he'd planted himself, between the cougar and the fence line, between the cougar and the barn, between the cougar and anything she might want to reach. His mouth was closed. His breathing was steady. He looked like he could stand there until spring. The cougar tried again. This time she went vertical. That was her advantage, the one thing dogs can't match. She gathered her haunches and launched upward, trying to clear Shepherd and reach the fence. For a fraction of a second she was airborne, 120 pounds of cat suspended against the black sky, front legs extended, back legs tucked. Shepherd cut the angle. He didn't try to grab her in the air. He's smart, not suicidal. He sprinted to where she'd land and was there when her paws hit the ground. His bark, the first real bark of the entire fight, was sharp enough to crack glass. It wasn't communication. It was concussion, a sound designed to freeze prey for one critical half-second. She flinched, just barely, just enough. Nero hit her from the blind side, shoulder first, like a linebacker. The impact knocked her sideways, and Boaz closed the distance with 2 heavy steps, cutting off the new escape route before she could recover. If you're still with me, drop a comment, because what these 3 did next, I've never heard of dogs doing before. They stopped attacking, all 3 of them, simultaneously. They didn't lunge. They didn't bite. They just closed, tightened the triangle, step by step, shoulder to shoulder. 3 different breeds, 3 different instincts, moving like a single organism. They were giving her a choice. The cougar hissed, low, guttural, the sound a pressure cooker makes before it blows. She swiped at the air between her and Nero, claws extended, a warning shot. He didn't react, didn't even blink. She turned to Shepherd. Same thing, turned to Boaz. He took 1 step forward, just 1. That was enough. She read the math, 3 on 1. All 3 still standing, all 3 still pressing. Her flank was bleeding. Her rear leg was stiffening. The adrenaline was burning off and the pain was settling in like concrete. She could fight. She could probably kill one of them. Maybe even 2 if the fight went long and messy and luck ran her way. But she couldn't kill all 3. And any fight that left her injured enough, even if she won, was a death sentence in these mountains. A cougar that can't hunt doesn't eat. A cougar that doesn't eat doesn't survive December. The math was clear. She backed toward the fence. 1 step, 2, 3. The dogs matched her, not pursuing, not retreating, maintaining the distance, maintaining the pressure, maintaining the line. She reached the sagging rail, hesitated, looked back one more time. Nero stood in the center, blood running down his leg, pooling in the grass around his right paw. He didn't growl, didn't bare his teeth. He just stood there. That was the message. She turned, gathered what was left of her strength, cleared the fence, but not clean. Her back legs caught the rail and she stumbled on the other side, landing hard in the brush. The sound of her scrambling up and crashing through the undergrowth faded into the mountain. Then silence. The kind of silence that has weight, that sits on your chest. Marcus found them at 5:47 a.m. The porch light was still off. His coffee was still brewing. He stepped outside in his boots and boxers, saw the blood on the grass, and said one word. No, not that word. He said something worse. He said their names. The veterinary clinic in Tazewell opens at 8. Marcus had Nero in the back of his truck by 6:15, wrapped in a moving blanket that was already soaked through. Shepherd rode shotgun, bleeding onto the bench seat. Boaz sat in the bed of the truck, favoring his left leg, watching the road behind them like whatever had come might follow. Dr. Anna Whitfield had been a large animal vet for 22 years. She'd stitched up hunting dogs, pulled porcupine quills out of hounds, and once spent 4 hours reassembling a beagle's face after a run-in with a raccoon. She thought she'd seen everything. She hadn't seen this. Nero's shoulder wound was the worst. 4 lacerations, each between 3 and 5 inches long, cutting through the dermis and into the muscle fascia. The deepest one had nicked the supraspinatus. She shaved the area, cleaned it with chlorhexidine, and started suturing. 14 stitches on the outside, dissolvable internal sutures to hold the muscle together. The whole time, Nero lay on the steel table without a muzzle. Didn't snap, didn't whimper. He just watched her hands with those dark eyes and breathed. "This dog should be screaming," she told Marcus. "This is a deep wound." Marcus didn't answer. He was holding Nero's head in both hands, thumb rubbing the spot between his ears. Shepard's muzzle required 8 stitches and a course of antibiotics. The claw had missed his eye by less than an inch. Dr. Whitfield measured it with a ruler and showed Marcus. 11 millimeters. That's the margin between a scar and blindness. Shepard sat through the procedure with his tail flat on the table, ears back, breathing fast through his nose because breathing through his mouth hurt too much. Boaz was the easiest, relatively speaking. The thigh laceration was shallow enough to clean and bandage without stitches, but the muscle beneath was bruised and swollen. He'd be limping for weeks. Dr. Whitfield wrapped it tight, gave him an anti-inflammatory injection, and told Marcus to keep him off the leg as much as possible. As much as possible, with a KANGAL, means nothing. Boaz was walking on it before they got back to the truck. The bill came to $1,800. Marcus paid it on a credit card that was already carrying a balance from the new fence posts he'd bought last month. He didn't hesitate, didn't negotiate. Some things aren't negotiable. At home, he set up the living room like a field hospital. Blankets on the floor, water bowls within reach. Nero got the spot by the wood stove, warmest place in the house. Shepard curled up on the couch, which he wasn't normally allowed on. Nobody said anything about it. Boaz lay in the doorway between the living room and the kitchen, because even drugged and limping, he wasn't going to stop guarding the entrance. Marcus sat in the recliner with a bourbon he didn't drink and looked at his dogs. Here's the thing nobody tells you about protection. It's not free. It's not clean. It's not the movie version where the hero takes a hit and walks it off in the next scene. Nero's shoulder would take 6 weeks to heal. He'd have a scar that would never fully flatten. Shepard would flinch at sudden movements near his face for months. Boaz would compensate for the bad leg and develop a hip problem by spring. Protection costs. Every single time. The alternative was a dead flock, dead livestock, maybe a dead dog. The wrong dog in the wrong place at the wrong time, alone against something built to kill. But they weren't alone. That was the whole point. That was the thing the cougar didn't account for. Dr. Whitfield called the next day to check on them. She asked Marcus a question he'd been turning over in his head since he found the blood. How did they know to work together like that? He was quiet for a long time. "I don't think they knew," he said. "I think they just decided." 14 days. Nero's stitches were holding, but the skin around them had that tight, shiny look of tissue trying to remember how to be whole. He moved slower now. Not from pain. The pain was managed. From caution. He'd learned something that night, and it had changed the way he carried himself. Not weaker. Heavier. Like a man who's been in a car wreck and now checks his mirrors twice. Shepard's muzzle had scabbed over into a dark ridge that split his face like a fault line. It made him look older. Meaner. He wasn't meaner. If anything, he was calmer. The nervous energy that used to make him patrol the yard in tight circles was gone. He'd sit on the porch and watch the tree line with the patience of someone who's already seen the worst thing come out of it. Boaz's limp was still there. Subtle. You'd miss it if you weren't looking. A slight hitch in his left rear step, like a record skipping. He ignored it the way he ignored most things that weren't a direct threat to his territory, which, at last count, included everything within eyesight. Marcus had replaced the sagging fence rail, doubled the trail cameras, added a motion-activated floodlight that pointed at the gap where the logging road met the property. He did these things methodically, without rushing. The way you board up windows before a storm you know is coming back. Tuesday, 11:43 p.m. The trail camera on the north post triggered. Marcus was still awake. He'd been sleeping in 2-hour shifts since the attack. His phone on the nightstand with the camera app open. The notification buzzed. He picked it up. Green and gray, infrared. The tree line, 60 yards out. She was there, thinner than before. Her coat looked rough, patchy in places, dull where it should have been sleek. The left rear leg was stiff. She wasn't moving with that liquid grace anymore. She moved like something that had been recently reminded it could be hurt. She stood at the edge of the trees, just inside the shadow line, where the floodlight couldn't reach. Her eyes caught the infrared and flared white in the camera image, 2 bright coins floating in the dark. She didn't approach the fence. Marcus got up, pulled on his boots, walked to the back door and opened it without turning on the light. All 3 dogs were already outside. He didn't know when they'd gone out, didn't hear the dog door. But there they were, standing in the yard 30 feet from the porch, arranged in the same formation. Nero in the center, Shepherd to the right, Boaz to the left, facing the tree line. No barking, no growling, no posturing, just presence. The cougar watched them. They watched her. The night was clear, the first clear night in weeks, and the stars threw just enough light to see outlines. 4 animals, separated by 60 yards of frozen ground, having a conversation in a language that doesn't use words. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. His breath made clouds. His hands were cold. 30 seconds passed. A minute, longer. Nobody moved. Nothing made a sound except the creek, thin and distant, running over ice-covered rocks somewhere down the hill. Then the cougar did something Marcus had never seen a mountain lion do. She turned slowly. Not a flinch, not a bolt. She turned her whole body, deliberately, like she was acknowledging something. She looked at the 3 dogs one more time, held it, let it last. Then she walked into the trees, not running, not limping, walking, the way you leave a place you've decided isn't yours. The dogs held their line for another 10 minutes. Marcus counted. Then Nero sat down, then Shepherd, then Boaz, with that careful, leg-favoring way of lowering himself to the ground. Nobody went inside for a long time. The territory had been decided, not by blood, not by death, by 3 dogs who got hurt and came back anyway, who stood in the cold with stitches and scabs and a limp that wouldn't quit, and said the only thing that mattered: we're still here. If this story hit you somewhere real, subscribe. I tell stories like this every week. Animals that fight, bleed, and hold the line. Drop a comment. Have your dogs ever done something that made you realize they understood more than you thought?